Hello everybody and welcome. This is HackerFrogs. I am the Shy Hat and we're going to be learning about web app hacking today. We're doing HackerFrogs after school and we're working on web app workshop number 8, Burp Suite part 2 of 2. So this is web app hacking and we're going to be continue our journey with Burp Suite. Hopefully by the end of today, you'll be familiar enough with Burp Suite to be able to do some learning on your own. And indeed, this is going to be the last web app hacking workshop for HackerFrogs. And after today, next week, we're going to do our next installment, which is going to be digital forensics for the advanced students, and I'll also be doing a cycle back to Linux OS operations for newbies. So look forward to that. I'll probably be doing the Linux OS operations workshops on Monday and the digital forensics workshops on Tuesday. All right, so with that out of the way, let's move on to today's workshop. Web app application number 8, Burp Suite part 2 of 2. So this is the 8th intro to web app hacking workshop. In the previous workshop, we learned about the following web app hacking concepts. So we were talking about Burp Suite. So Burp Suite is the industry standard software framework for testing web apps. It includes many different tools and most importantly, the following 2 tools. There's Burp Proxy, which is a server which enables web traffic to be captured and recorded. It sits between the browser and the server, enabling traffic capture. And we're also going to be talking about Burp Repeater. And the Burp Repeater is a tool which allows for manual web request manipulation and replay. So this is going to be the star of the show today as we get more familiar with working in Burp Suite. So in this workshop, we'll be taking another look at Burp Suite, focusing on the arguably most important tool, the Burp Repeater. So you can do a lot of manual testing using Burp Repeater, and it's probably one of my favorite tools as far as Burp Suite is concerned. So we're going to be learning more with the Try Hack Me cybersecurity education platform. So if you do not already have an account over at tryhackme.com, you can create an account over there and then join us at the following URL. And I'll be providing the URL in the chat in case you need to access it. But if you were to search for this on your own, the room is called Burp Suite Repeater. It is a free room, meaning that you don't necessarily need to have a subscription at tryhackme.com in order to access this room. So the first thing you need to do after you've entered this room is to join the room. There's going to be a button that says Join Room somewhere over here. You'll click on that, and then you'll have access to the rest of the contents of the room. So let's work through this room, starting from task number 1, which is labeled Introduction. So in this task over here, this just says that we're going to be introduced to the Burp Suite framework by focusing on this particular tool, which is the Burp Suite Repeater module. And there is a room before this, which we solved last week, the Burp Basics room. I'll also copy the link of that room for those in chat, just in case you missed that one and want to go back and try that one out as well. So we're going to deploy the target VM attached to this task by pressing the green Start Machine button. So in this room, in this educational module, we're going to be deploying a virtual machine by pressing this button right here, and that's going to create a VM virtual machine for us to interact with later. Okay, so make sure you press that green button to start your own virtual machine, and we're also going to be creating a machine for us to interact with this vulnerable server over here, this target machine, which is called the Try Hack Me attack box. So to access the Try Hack Me attack box, you want to click on this button at the top of the room UI over here, and the button is labeled Start Attack Box. I want you to click on that. And that's going to start the virtual machine that we're going to be using to interact with the vulnerable virtual machine that we started in task 1. So this is going to take a little bit to initialize. If you don't happen, so what is supposed to happen is that the browser tab is supposed to split into 2 different panes. There's going to be a left-hand pane with the Track Me web page, and a right-hand pane with the attack box virtual machine, which is initializing. If you don't see this, up at the top of your Track Me web page, there should be a blue button that says Show Split View. And if you click on that, then the browser pane will split in 2, and you should be able to see the attack box initializing over here. So that's going to take a little bit to initialize. So let's just move on, and we're going to complete this task. So under task 1, at the bottom of the section, there's going to be a question section, and it says answer the questions below. Let's get started. All you need to do is click on the complete button, and it is done. So just click on that button, and then task 1 is complete. So for task 2, click on that task, and it says, what is repeater? So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the presentation that I've prepared over here. And task 2, what is repeater? So this is what the Burp repeater window typically looks like. So over here, this is a Burp repeater window. It's a bit small in this view. Sorry about that. But the Track Me room separates it into different sections for us to take a look at. And those are going to look a little bit bigger. So by now, I think your attack box and your virtual machine should have initialized. So we're going to go back to the Track Me web page. So after your attack box is finished initializing, you should see this rainbow colored terminal right here. I want you to click into it and then press enter to dismiss this message right here. What we want to do is we want to put the attack box into its own web browser tab. And we can do that by going down to the bottom of the screen over here, and there's going to be a button labeled View in Full Screen. So I want you to click on that, and that's going to open up another web browser tab, and we can see our attack box in full screen now. So this is what we want to do because we don't want a cramped interface. So after we've created this new tab, we want to go back to the previous tab, and then we want to close out this window right here. So we can do that by clicking on this button at the bottom of the screen here, and it's labeled Exit Split View. So click on that button, and then we will have our the full screen for our Track Me webpage now. So we have one full tab for the Track Me webpage, and we have one full tab for the Track Me attack box, and that's what we want. Okay, so let's take this opportunity to open up our Burp Suite Community Edition in order to interact with the Burp Suite repeater, which is the task of today's module. So we want to go over to this blue button right here, which is labeled Burp Suite Community Edition. So click on that. And Burp Suite is going to initialize. Okay, it might take a little bit to initialize, but after it does, we want to click on the orange buttons at the bottom corners of the startup wizard, which is dialog box, which are labeled next. So click on next, and then we want to click on Start Burp. Okay, so it's going to take a little bit to start up. After that is done, there's going to be a pop-up window that says update is ready to install. We want to ignore that and just click on the close button over here. and we want to access the burp repeater. Actually, no, we don't want to access the burp repeater. First of all, what we need to do is we need to do some adjust some settings. So we want to go up to this button right here, burp, and then we go down to settings, and we want to mess around a little bit with the settings. We want to go down to Burp's browser right here, click on that, and then inside of this window we want to go down to the second section, which is browser running, and we want to click on this button right here that is labeled allow Burp's browser to run without a sandbox. Okay, so this is we need to click on this box in order to use the Burp browser a little bit later. There are some editions of Burp Suite that have this that don't require you to set the setting, but this one for TryHackMe does. So we want to close out the settings window over here. And one other important thing we need to do whenever we start up Burp Suite is we need to go over to the proxy tab, which is right here. So we'll start off on the dashboard tab. So the next tab is target and the next tab is proxy. So click on proxy, and we want to make sure that the blue intercept is on button is disabled. By disabled, I mean toggled off. So click on it, and then you'll see intercept is off. So unless intercept is off, we're going to have a hard time interacting with our Burp Suite browser because it's going to be intercepting requests, and we'll be required to manually accept or drop requests whenever we make any web requests, and that's a bit of a pain in the butt. So make sure that intercept is off. Okay, so with all that said, we can finally go over to the TryHackMe webpage over here. So it says that the interface consists of 6 main sections as depicted in the annotated diagram below. So I've got a little presentation here. So the first section over here is the request list section right here, and it contains different tabs in case there are multiple requests in the repeater. So in the case that you create multiple tabs in the repeater, there's going to be additional tabs created all along this row right here that you can click on to access that particular request. So right now you don't have to worry too much about it, but just keep in mind that this thing exists. So the second section is the request controls section, which allows sending, canceling, and navigating of request history. So over here, these are the controls for the request. So there's the big orange send button, and there's also options right here, and there's a cancel button and some other buttons for going back and forth. All right. So, and the next section after that is the request and response view displays, and they display request and response data, and also allow for the modification of the requests. So notably, there's the request section over here, and then after you send it, you'll see the corresponding response. Okay, there's a few more to go. Afterwards, we'll do a little bit of playing around with the request view. So next is section 4, which is the layout options, which lets us customize the response and it should be request and response views. So there's a button that lets you see the request and response side by side. There's another one that lets you see them one on top of the other, and there's one that lets you see the response in one tab and the request in the other. Okay, so number 5 is the inspector. So the inspector allows us to analyze and modify requests separate from the rest of the body. So if for some reason we have a lot of different attributes inside of a request, a bunch of different parameters, we can set those inside of the inspector instead of doing them inside of the body of the request. And lastly, we have the target field, which specifies which IP address or domain we're going to send the request to. So it's going to be either an IP address or a domain, a URL, and we can adjust that by modifying this section over here. So let's go over to our TryHackMe attack box, and we can go over to the repeater. The repeater is not populated right now, so what we need to do is we need to send out get some web requests so that we can send them to the repeater. So we're going to go to we're going to go to proxy, and then we're going to open the Burp browser by clicking on the open browser button right here. So just click it once and it'll take a little while to initialize, but in the meantime we can go back to our TryAcme page and we can get the target IP address for the website we're going to interact with for today's module. So it's going to be over here at the it's going to be on top of at the top of your browser tab, and you can click on this button to copy the target IP to the clipboard. The target IP address is not going to be the same for everybody because it'll give you different IP addresses each time a user clicks on it. So this might not be yours. So just click on the copy clipboard button and then go back to the attack box tab. And by now, the Burp browser should have finished initializing. So inside of here, there's a Chromium browser, which is attached to the Burp proxy. What we need to do is we need to paste in the IP address and then press enter. And this is going to connect us to the virtual machine web server that we need to interact with to finish this room. So it says here Bastion hosting. At this point, we can close our Burp browser because we've recorded the traffic for this particular request. So we don't necessarily need to close the browser. We probably shouldn't. What we need to do is we need to minimize the browser window, and then we can go over to Proxy HTTP History. Click on that tab, and we can see the requests that were made to this web server right here. So click on the one at the top, which is going to the URL just / which is the landing page. And we want to send this to the repeater. And we can send it to the repeater by doing the following. So either right-click on the request and select Send to Repeater, or use the Control-R keyboard shortcut, or we can click in on the request window right here, and we can right-click and then click on the Send to Repeater option. So when we do that, the repeater tab is going to glow orange, which means that it is received a new request. So we can click on that tab, repeater, and then we see that our request is right here. So let's go back to the presentation. So you can send a request to the repeater by right-clicking on the request or request window, then selecting the Send to Repeater option. So we were just talking about that. So you'll see the repeater tab turn orange, which indicates the request was sent to the repeater. Okay, and then after clicking on the repeater tab, you'll see the request, just like this. So let's solve the tasks that we just worked through over on the TryAcme webpage. So at the bottom of task 2, there's a question here: which sections give us a more intuitive control over our requests? So in that case, it was the Inspector tab. So the answer is Inspector. Okay, so that's done. So we're now at the basic usage task number 3. So let's go to, this is not what I want, this is what I want, right? So inside of here, the basic operation of the repeater is to send requests and get a response. So we see here that there is this request to the landing page of the web server for today's task. We have the request type get, and then the HTTP type version, which is 1.1, and all of our usual HTTP headers, such as host, upgrading secure requests, user agent, accept accept encoding, etc., etc. So what we need to do to send this request is to just click on the send button over here, and then we get the response over here. So the response over here is separated into different. Sorry, we can view the response in some different formats. So the pretty version of the response. Let's just go over that in the presentation. So the message analysis toolbar allows the user to adjust the response window output. So in this case, the pretty option, which is set by default over here, applies formatting to improve readability. So we see the response in here, and mostly the pretty version of the response just does some formatting changes to make it a little bit more readable, but it's not a very big difference. So the raw option returns the response without any adjustment to its formatting. So the raw response and the pretty response are very, very similar, except that the pretty response is going to be a little bit more legible. So we see here that the lines wrap around, and the spacing is a little bit different. It's a little bit more difficult to read. I guess in most cases you want to look at the pretty format so that you're able to read it a little bit more easily. So the hex option returns the response in its hexadecimal rendering with the ASCII output shown on the right-hand side. So over here we see that all the bytes have been rendered in hexadecimal format, and then their equivalent translations in ASCII are shown on the right-hand side. Let me demonstrate this. So if you click on the hex view over here, so each one of these lines is going to be 16 bytes. So 16 bytes over here, 8 and 8, and then the translation of these bytes is shown over on the right-hand side over here. So I'm sure there's a use for this particular view. I haven't used it very much myself. And then there's the last formatting change we can do. So the last one we can do is the render option. The render option returns output that resembles how a web page would be returned in the web browser. So this is useful if we don't want to look at a bunch of code that's a little bit hard to read. So if we go back to here, we can click on render, and then it's going to try to render this page as it would look in a web browser over here. So this is very useful if we don't want to stare at a bunch of code. All right, so let's move on then. So let's finish off task 4 in the Try Hack Me webpage. So which view will populate when sending a request from the proxy module to repeater? Which view will populate when sending a request from the proxy module to repeater? So when we send it from the proxy module to repeater, the repeater view is going to light up. So we just need to type in repeater. Okay, so it's going to be requests. The request view is going to populate. Okay, so and the request view is this view right here. Okay, so let's move on to task number 5. Sorry, task number 4. The message analysis toolbar, which we were just talking about. So this is what we were just talking about, the different tabs, pretty, raw, hex, and render. There's also a button right here which shows new lines and carriage returns, which are basically formatting marks. Let's demonstrate over here by going to the pretty view, and then we can toggle this on and off, and that's going to show us our carriage returns and our new lines. Okay, so for the sake of legibility, I'm going to turn these off. Okay. So at the bottom of task 4, we're asked which option allows us to visualize the page as it would appear in a web browser. And the answer is render. Click on submit. Okay, so next we're going to take a look at the inspector. So personally, I don't use the inspector a lot, but I'm sure there are cases where you should be using the inspector to adjust these values to do manual testing. In which case it is very valuable. So let's take a look at. So the inspector allows users to change various requests parameters when resending requests. So in case you want to adjust the cookies only, or to adjust the headers only, or to adjust the request query parameters, request attributes. Let's take a look in the inside the attack box to get a better idea of this. So if we click on request attributes over here, it says here there's the method and the path. So we can change these. We can change the method to post or to options or some other HTTP method. And we can actually change the path over here. And we can also change the HTTP version from HTTP1 to HTTP2 if we desired. So there are no cookies over here. There are headers. So there are specific headers inside of our request, which we could manually change from inside of the inspector if we wanted to. So so that's the inspector. Let's move on to the bottom of the section over here. So which section in inspector is specific to post requests? So which section in the inspector is specific to post requests? I guess that would be the request body parameters. So in the case of post requests, the body parameters are what is the information that we send to the web server. So in this case, the answer here is body parameters. Okay. So we're moving on to task number 6 now, our practical example. So this is where we get to test out the repeater in order to solve some challenges. So repeater is a particularly well-suited task requiring repetitive sendings of similar requests, typically with minor modifications. So send this request once. So we're going to capture the request to our default IP address, send it to repeater. We've already done that. So send the request once from repeater. You should see the HTML source code for the page in the requested for the page you requested during the response view. So using inspector, or manually if you prefer, add a header called flag authorized and set it to the value of true as shown below. Okay, so we're going to make a modification to our request to the landing page. We can copy this flag authorized text right here, and then we can set it to true inside of the inspector. So let's go over to the attack box, and then inside of request headers over here, I think we can add one by clicking on this button right here, the plus button. So click on that. So we can add the flag authorized name, and the value we're going to set to true, TRUE, and then we're going to add it. And that adds this to the end of our request right here, our request headers. So what they want us to do is to send this with flag authorized set to true. So send this, and then we receive a flag in return, which we can copy and provide to the Track Me webpage to complete the task. So copy this. What is the flag you receive? And we're going to paste it in and click on submit. Okay, so next is the challenge. So in the previous task, we demonstrated the use of repeater by adding a header and sending a request. This served as an illustrative example for utilizing repeater, so now it's time for a straightforward challenge. To begin, make sure intercept is disabled in your proxy module and navigate to this page right here. So now try clicking on some of the See More links. So let's do that inside of our Burp browser. Copy this address and then go to the attack box and then open up the Burp browser again, which is going to be this this blue chromium icon, and then we can paste in the address, products, and the web page there instructed us to click on some of these See More buttons. So we can click on them, and then we can go back and we can click on another one and repeat that a couple more times. Okay, and we finished doing that. Let's go back to the web page for some more instructions. So observe that you are redirected to a numeric endpoint, products/3. The objective is to validate the endpoint, confirming the existence of the number you wish to navigate to and ensuring that it's a valid integer. However, consider what might happen if this endpoint is not adequately validated. Okay, so what we need to do is go back to the attack box and then minimize the browser again. And then go to open up Burp Suite again. Go to proxy and then HTTP history. And we see that inside of the history, we have all of our requests to these product pages right here. So we can see that the products are all numerical values that iterate up. So what we would want to do is to validate whether or not there are any problems with how the system handles validation of these endpoints, is to start testing them using the repeater. So what we would do is right-click on one of these requests and then click on Send to Repeater, and then go over to the repeater. So we see that this is this request is to product/5, so we can send this, and we see that we get a normal response. But we can also start adjusting the number over here. So products/5, we can change this to products/0 and see if it. So it says 401 not found. Okay. So how about if we set this to products9999? Okay, not found. So let's see what happens if we try sending some symbols instead of some numbers. So we can send a bunch of symbols there, and this is surprisingly okay. But let's try a negative number. So products -1, okay, and we can try sending that, and we received a 500 internal server error. So this means that there are some things that the server just can't handle over here. It doesn't handle negative numbers. So if we were to render this, we see the error number, and then we also have a flag, which is what we were supposed to retrieve. So we can go back to the pretty format, and we see the code over here at the bottom of the code, at the bottom of the HTML code. So copy this, and then supply this as the answer for the task question. Click on complete here, and what is the flag you receive when you cause a 500 error at the endpoint? It's going to be this flag right here, and click submit. Okay. So we also have this this extra challenge right here, the extra mile challenge. So let's take a look at the presentation where we're talking about the extra mile challenge. So for the extra mile challenge, we need to use the repeater to perform a SQL injection attack on the app's about ID endpoint. So if we go back to the TryAcme webpage, we're talking about the about ID endpoint. So inside of the task, you can copy this, and then we can go back to the attack box And inside of the Burp browser over here, we can navigate to that page by pasting in the URL. Okay, so this is the page where the SQL injection vulnerability is. After we've recorded this, we can minimize the browser and then go back to Burp Suite. And then inside of the proxy HTTP history tab, we see the request that we're supposed to test at the bottom of the view. So what we can do is we can right-click and send that to repeater, and then click on repeater, and we see that this is the request we're looking for. Note that if we click on these tabs, these were the previous requests that we sent to the repeater in case we needed to access them again. But in this case, we want to go to the latest one, which in this case is number 3. So the first thing we need to do is, first we need to confirm the SQL injection vulnerability by causing an error. So in this case, when we want to confirm a SQL vulnerability, you would usually try to send a single quote or a double quote in order to cause the SQL system to error out. So we can do that inside the attack box by going over here to the top of the request, and the endpoint we're going to test is going to be about/2, and then we're going to add a single quote at the end here. So just add that single quote and then send the request, and it returns a 500 internal server error message. So if we go down to the bottom, or if we were to click on the render view over here, it says invalid statement, select first name, last name, PFP link, role, bio from people where ID equals 2. So this looks like a SQL query. So this is how we validate that that the system is vulnerable to SQL injection. So next thing we need to do, we need to determine how many columns the original query returns. So if you remember from the series we did on SQL injection, we want to use a union select statement in order to get additional info from the database in the case that there is SQL injection. So what we need to do is we need to count the number of columns that are returned from this statement right here, this query. So this is a column, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if we know that there are 5 columns returned from the original query, that means that we can craft a union select statement to get more information from the database. So we would do that. So the first thing we would want to do is we would want to get the name of the database. We need to determine the name of the current database. So let's do that. So in the attack box here, we're going to adjust the name. I want to offer, okay. Sorry, I just needed to do some maintenance there. All right, so we know that there are 5 columns over here. What we need to do is we need to return something that's not going to return any information in the original statement. So we have to supply an endpoint that doesn't exist. In this case, we can supply the number 0, which doesn't exist, and then we need to. So let's try to make this bigger. I'm going to switch the view over to the big one over here, and I'm not sure if I can make this bigger for everybody to see, but hopefully you can see okay. So about 0, and then space, and then we use the union select, about 0, union select, and then it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, and we know that there are 5 columns returned from the original query. The last one the last column here, number 5, we're going to instead use the database function, which is going to return the name of the database being used. So we can send this, and then click on the response tab over here. Remember that because we clicked on this button right here, the request and response are in different tabs. Okay, so in the response over here, we got the columns that we provided, 1, 2, we don't see 3, so it's probably this profile picture right here, number 4, and then we have the word site. So this is probably the name of the database that's being used. So we need the name of the database to enumerate further. The next step is to enumerate all tables in the current database. So we need to get the names of the tables in the database. Let me show you how. So we go back to the request view. So what we're going to do is we're going to union select everything as usual, but the end of the request for column 5 is going to be group concat table underscore name So group concat table name inside the brackets from information underscore schema dot tables where table underscore schema equals database brackets parentheses, just like this. Okay, so this is going to, this statement right here using the group concat method is going to give us multiple entries in the case that there are multiple entries inside of the table names where information.tables and the table schema equals database right here. So this is a little bit complicated. I'll include this this payload in chat just in case you wanted to try it out yourself. Okay, so I'm going to send this, and in response, we see that the only table inside of this this database is called people over here. So after that, we need to determine what the columns are inside of the people table. So enumerate all tables in the current database, and then retrieve all columns in that table. So we know that the table is called people. Let's go retrieve the column names. So we can go back to the request tab, and then we're going to group concat, and in this case it's going to be not table name but column name, and it's from information underscore schema dot columns, so not tables but columns, where table name and table underscore name equals people, and make sure that the people is encased in quotes in this case, otherwise it's not going to work. And then we send that, and in the response we see that there are these following columns inside of the people table. So there's ID, first name, last name, PFP link, role, short role, bio, and notes. So if we were to iterate through all of these, we're going to find that the notes section over here is the one that's interesting to us. So the next thing we need to do is to retrieve all entries in those columns. So let's do just that. So we need to go back to the request portion, and this is going to be a much shorter payload. So let's get rid of all this. So it's going to be group concat, and we're looking for the notes column, and it's going to be from people, and that's it for the payload. So we're just going to try to get all of the contents from the notes column. So let's send that, and then look at the response. So inside the response, we've got this flag right here, and that's what we're looking for. So we successfully did some SQL injection. So in this case, to copy this, we need to go over to the Pretty tab right here. So click on that, and then at the bottom of the code, we've got our flag right here. So we just need to copy up until here, until the end of the curly bracket. So copy that, and then we can go back to the Try Hack Me webpage. So right here, this entire section over here is giving you a rundown on how to perform this SQL injection right here. If you have some time, you can come back to this section over here and look through it further. There's some good information here. So let's go down to the bottom and provide the flag right here. Click on Submit, and the answer is correct. Okay. So the last thing we could do is complete task 9, conclusion. So here we're just talking about how we completed this room right here. They do some advertisement for their next module right here, which is Burp Suite Intruder. Unfortunately, that particular module is not free. You have to have a subscription to use that, but it's a good module nonetheless. If you have a subscription, I would recommend trying it out. So what we need to do is click on I can use Burp Suite Repeater and click on Complete. So we've finished this room. Awesome. Okay, so if there are any questions about what we need to do any questions about the Burp Suite Repeater and the different things we did inside of today's room, go ahead and type in chat. I'm happy to answer any questions about that or any questions about cybersecurity in general, because we've finished a little bit early, but I hope everybody got some good information out of today's workshop. So before we go, let's do some shameless advertising. We are HackerFrogs, and we have a Reddit over here at reddit.com/HackerFrogs, and it's a community where we can where beginner cybersecurity students can talk about everything about how and where to learn about cybersecurity. We try to update the page as much as we can, and we like to post our streaming schedules up here as well. So we are currently in week 17, and we're doing Monday, April 22nd, that's today, HackerFrogs After School, Web App Hacking 8, the finale with Burp Suite Repeater, and Try Hack Me. So that's what we're doing right now. On Wednesday, we're going to have another stream, which is going to be HackerFrogs Extra Credit, Burp Suite Practice with Portswinger Labs. What we're going to do in that workshop, is we're going to work with Burp Suite, not necessarily on the Try Hack Me website. So we're going to need our own installation of Burp Suite in order to do these labs. My recommendation is to get a working virtual machine of Kali Linux, because Burp Suite Community Edition is installed on the Kali Linux virtual machine. And that's probably the easiest way to interact with Burp Suite, to solve some labs over at Portswigger Labs, because you don't have to fiddle around with the installation process, and it can be a bit of a pain and a bit time consuming. And we also have HackerFrogs is also a YouTube channel. So if you go to youtube.com/@theshyhat, you can see that we're live right now. That's amazing, isn't it? We also have all of our videos over here. For the last couple of weeks, I've been uploading the challenge videos from a previous stream that I did on the PicoCTF 2024 event challenges. So that if you want to see some walkthroughs for those challenges, you can go ahead and check those out. But we also have the HackerFrogs After School modules over here with videos detailing the web app hacking. The web app hacking workshops, which are the green videos, the Python programming videos, which are the blue videos, and the Linux OS operations videos, which are the red videos over here. Okay, so there's also a nifty video that I recommend to anybody who's just getting into cybersecurity called "How Do I Get into Cybersecurity?" I will provide the link to that in chat, just in case you wanted to watch that. So it basically talks about how you should do your research and take a look at all the different roles in cybersecurity before deciding on which one to focus on, as well as to go and meet some cybersecurity professionals and enthusiasts at in-person meetups. It's a great way to get introduced to the cybersecurity community, and the friends you meet in those meetup groups are invaluable for getting tips on new connections and maybe even job opportunities down the road. All right, so on Wednesday we're going to be doing our extra credit challenge. We're going to be working through, we're going to be working through Portswigger Labs. We're going to be covering some web app hacking topics that we've done previously, but we're going to be doing it with Burp Suite, which is actually going to be, I think it's going to be pretty fun. But if not, on next Monday, on the 29th, we're going to be starting our new HackerFrog cycle, and we're going to be covering some real basics with Linux OS operations. And on next Tuesday, not tomorrow, we're going to be covering digital forensics, a new course inside of HackerFrogs. So everybody, please look forward to that. But until next time, it has been fun. Have fun, HackerFrogs. Until next week, until next time, have a great week, and we'll see you then.